The ZA Tech Show is made possible by Vodacom. Power to you at vodacom.co.za. And by BlackBerry. Love doing business on your BlackBerry smartphone at blackberry.co.za. It's episode number 200 of the ZA Tech Show. Welcome to it, recorded on 27 February, Monday night, 2012. My name is Simon Dingle. Thanks for joining us. If you're doing so live, especially so because we like you. You give us live feedback while we do the show. And that's useful. Bless you, Arthur. That was the cough of foremost technology analyst in South Africa, Arthur Goldstuck from Worldwide Works.
That was another cough.
Clears his throat again. Ben Kelly is here from the Mail and Guardian and elsewhere, a cave in the Magaliesberg. He's shaved for a change.
Yes, I've been evicted from the cave, so now I have electricity. So
he's shaved for episode 200 of the show.
Just for the show.
Which we're doing without much fanfare, and I'll tell you why. We kicked this back and forth, myself and Brett Haggard, who collectively founded this year's ZA Tech Show. And we thought we did a big thing at 100. We launched the new website. We went live with video. And we thought, what should we do for 200? Everybody makes a big deal of episode 200. And we thought that actually we should go for episode 250 as the big deal show. Because in my mind, it's 100, 250, 500, and then 1,000. Hey, Arthur, doesn't that make sense?
Multiples of 100 actually work beautifully.
So we're going to have to do something really big every 100 episodes.
Yeah, correct.
Well, so I suppose that is only every 2 years.
Every 500 episodes, you do something seriously big.
All right. Well, be that as it may, we've decided to do it on 250. I'll tell you why as well, is because we've got something up our sleeve that we're very excited about, but it's not ready yet, and we wanted to make that a big announcement. So as soon as we can, which hopefully will coincide with episode 250. That should be more than enough time. We'll start talking about this thingy. But let's not dwell on that. I want to introduce the last member of our panel this evening, Nafisa Akabo from My Digital Life.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good to have you back on the show.
Good to be back.
I'm surprised you came back.
What can I say?
A lot of people come on the show and after experiencing it go, well, that was a crap idea. I'm out of here.
I think she's a glutton for punishment.
Possibly.
Yeah, it's that.
Well, it's good to have you back with us. At Nafisa1 on Twitter, if you're looking for her. And so here we are with the show. I suppose foremost in everybody's minds this week is the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, which is the big annual event in the mobile world. I've been there the last 3 years in a row. This year, alas, I am not there. Well, not so much alas, because I've been watching the announcements roll out and nothing has really blown me away. HTC's got that beautiful new quad-core device that they're touting, which looks pretty amazing, running Android Ice Cream Sandwich. There have been some other announcements as well. I don't know if it's anything caught you, Ben? Anything that stood out to you as particularly significant at Mobile World this year?
The Nokia announcement there, I think it's the PureView 808.
Yeah.
Which apart from I understand why it is, but apart from the fact that it runs Symbian, what Nokia have done is they've somehow managed to build a 41 megapixel camera into a cell phone. And what it does is it does what they call oversampling. So each pixel takes the 7 pixels around it, says, do you guys have anything that I don't have?
Right.
And if they go, yeah, we do, then it sort of combines all that information into the single pixel. So you get essentially a 5 megapixel picture out of the camera.
Yes.
But what you get is really, really great low light performance. The kind of low light performance that you would never find on a camera phone.
Sure.
Up until now.
But 41 megapixels.
Well, I guess...
Was that quite necessary? Must have been, right.
I guess so, And I just think, this is they've been working for 5 years on this thing.
Yeah.
Sort of in the Nokia skunk works. And that's obviously why it's Symbian to start with, because they didn't have Windows 7 until a year ago. So they're obviously doing all the development on a Symbian platform.
Right.
But they're talking about rolling it out to the Windows 7 ecosystem in the next year, within the next 12 months, and that would be something really spectacular.
Yes.
Because I mean, we haven't because what they were saying is their motivation was that it's very difficult to do optical zoom on a camera phone because you need bulky lenses, and the lenses are never good enough quality, and everything just doesn't work the way it should work.
Yeah.
And this is their answer to that problem.
Okay.
So they're essentially using digital zoom to get a better picture, but by increasing the amount of pixels, the megapixels that they have on it, they can actually do decent digital zoom.
Now, on the video, they're showing some of the images that have been generated with this device. And, I mean, when they start zooming in, it really does get ridiculous. So, I mean, some people are saying this kind of changes things this is a game changer for photography. Do you think that's taking it a bit far, or?
I think it's...
Nafisa seems to think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to change much. I think it's more of an attention-grabbing thing, the 41 megapixels, so people know it's out there.
Yeah.
But it's not it won't be a fantastic... I still think the iPhone 4S would be a better camera on a phone.
I mean, I haven't played with the 808, so it's difficult to compare them. But I'm blown away by the camera on the 4S, especially in low light conditions, which was always, as you said, Ben, the problem with smartphone cameras is when you get them into low light conditions.
I think the 41 is just a very big number designed to get gasps from the audience.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what happened if you watch the press conference, which was a live webcast this morning from Mobile World.
Yes.
You got that sense that was the wow moment. Wow, 41 megapixel camera.
Can you believe it?
if you speak to a professional photographer, he'll tell you that beyond around 15 megapixels, the amount of megapixels isn't going to make as much difference as things like the quality of the lens, the aperture, etc. The shutter speed in particular. And that's where a lot of the 5 to 8 megapixel phone cameras have been incredibly disappointing because the rest of those specs have been very poor. So you've got this high megapixel camera and you've got poor quality pictures, especially in low light.
Right.
I think what we're really talking about is actually a 5 megapixel camera. They could have given it like a cool trade name like SuperView or something like that.
Yes.
Or just called it PureView. Nokia PureView. It's this really cool technology which allows you to get really awesome photographs even in low light conditions.
Yes.
But as you say, they said 41 megapixels, just like people go, what the hell?
Yeah.
To get that kind of reaction from people.
Yeah.
But in reality, it is only a 5 megapixel camera.
Yeah.
But it's delivery. And I mean, I don't think it's revolutionizing anything because the revolution has happened already. The revolution where the Mick and Rick instant camera got destroyed by the camera phone is already over.
Yes, yeah.
That revolution has happened. The iPhone did that already.
Right.
So... And the smartphone did that already. So what are we dealing with? We're dealing with an evolution. It's not a revolution. It's an evolution on something which has happened already.
Right.
To say, how can we tweak what we've got to make it better?
Right.
At the same time, though, I would say that the Nokia announcements actually did contain the big news of a Mobile World. The 41 megapixel camera was the big number.
Yes.
But the big story to me is the rollout of the Asha range.
Yes.
That's the low cost range. It's series, I always forget the numbers.
40.
30 and
S40.
40. S30 and S40 products. And that's on the Asha 202 and 203. And then there's also the slightly higher end 302.
Yes.
And what those phones represent is, in effect, smartphone capability on old feature phones at the cost of a feature phone. And looking at what they have to offer and what's coming on that range, I think that's going to make a huge impact. That's going to restore or retain Nokia's hold on that lower end of the market worldwide outside of North America.
That to me was the big announcement at Nokia World last year. Everybody was fixated on the Lumia devices and the first Windows Phone smartphones from Nokia, and they are amazing devices. But for me, the real wow came from the Asha devices. They've got dual SIM devices, as you said. Bringing some of that smartphone goodness to the feature phone market. You can play Angry Birds, for example, on these phones. They've got really great speakers and price points of around $100. They really, I think, are going to And, that makes them the one big manufacturer that's taking the fight to the cheaper Chinese manufacturers like Huawei and ZTE, and really duking it out at the bottom of the market, which is, and I think an astute observation on the market on behalf of Nokia. They really seem to understand
for sure
emerging markets.
You look at some of those features. I was just looking at the Asha 302, the upper end of the low end range. It's powered by a 1 gigahertz processor, which is on a par with most of the smartphones out there. So the power is there, the price is certainly there, and I think that what Nokia really needs is to break it into that North American market, to really wake up the American analysts to what they're achieving elsewhere.
Sure. We talking about processors, we now have quad-core phones, which just blows me away. And also excites me as a Linux geek, because a recent announcement and something that's been showing off at Mobile World Congress this year is Ubuntu for Android, where you've essentially got an Ubuntu operating system embedded on your Android phone. You then dock it with a desktop, something Motorola's tried before, and you get a full Linux desktop experience from your mobile phone. The HTC One, I think, is the first quad-core phone.
Hawaii. Well, there's the Hawaii.
There's the Huawei as well.
Ascent D, which they're claiming is the fastest smartphone in the world.
Yeah, let's talk about that one for a moment, because that's what really caught my attention.
The Huawei.
The Huawei Ascend D quad phone, as Ben says, claimed to be the fastest smartphone in the world. But what it's showing is Huawei bringing incredible design sensibility to smartphones, which they weren't associated with before.
Yes.
So at Consumer Electronics Show, they released the Ascend P1, which they claim to be the thinnest smartphone in the world. Now they're claiming the fastest smartphone in the world. So they're really trying to set the bar.
Yes.
The question is whether they can get people to buy into the brand itself and the sexiness of the brand, because that's really where they're competing.
Yeah. That's been a challenge for them with the tablets as well, with their S7. But I mean, the IDEOS range has already done its job in a lot of Africa. You look at Kenya, for example. The IDEOS, and something you speak about quite regularly, Arth, transformed the smartphone market, didn't it?
That's the phone I describe as the phone that changed the Kenyan market. But it hasn't really changed many other markets, because they haven't been able to get the same kind of bundle, prepaid. I think it was $100 phone. In fact, an $85 phone with 600 megs of data preloaded and about $10 of airtime.
Yeah.
And they also marketed it as the Android phone, which is quite interesting branding. And the market bought into the idea of an Android phone with Facebook and Twitter built into it at a very low cost. And you couldn't get that phone. You had to line up for it, and eventually out of the pink, yellow and blue models, you had to go with the pink because the others were all sold out. So that kind of scenario where people are fighting each other for their choice of phone, and you want that in every market, but it hasn't quite happened elsewhere.
Right. At the top of the market, it is amazing, though, to think of quad-core processors. There's been rumors that the iPad 3 will have a quad-core processor. We're going to see quad-core tablets come out of MWC as well. And we've got the phones already. We've also seen recently the announcement by Adobe that Photoshop Touch is coming to the iPad. It's already available for Android. I haven't used it. Have any of you used Photoshop Touch?
I was complaining that it was $10 and it didn't look like it was worth the price. I haven't tried it though.
$10 though is not lot of money.
I know, but
for a good photo editing
what is the most you spent on an app in comparison?
$20 for Quick Office Pro.
What's the most? I suppose a lot of people would have bought like OmniGraffle, which I think is about $50, right? But it's amazing how our perception of value has changed. What does Photoshop cost for the desktop?
I was just saying, I think that if you get, it's difficult for Adobe because they're going to have to put, they're essentially squashing down a $400 piece of software into a $10 app. And how much do you leave out before?
Yeah, but comparatively, that's cheap, the $10.
True.
No, $10 is compared to Photoshop.
How many would willingly spend the $10?
That's true too. Are you a big tablet user, Nafisa? Do you have an iPad?
I do have an iPad.
Yeah.
It's more dead at home than in use.
I think that's a lot of people. My iPad stays at home mostly.
If I'm not on my phone, I'm using my Mac.
Yeah.
So
I find there's a lot of duplicity when I travel, having my iPhone and an iPad.
Yeah.
It feels like I'm doubling up on just too much, and then my laptop's in my bag as well. So outside of watching movies on the plane, I feel like the iPad is, I don't know.
I took my iPad to Vic Falls last year when I went, and it actually helped me a lot. I played like Plants vs Zombies, and I read some books.
There's no doubt it's a great holiday device.
Yeah, that's what I realized. It's a great holiday device if you're not taking your laptop.
I find that my laptop is the desktop.
Yes.
And my iPad is everywhere else.
Okay.
So my iPad and my
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
If I'm actually physically moving, then I'm on my iPhone. If I'm in a place which is not at my desk, then it's the iPad. And if I'm sitting at my desk, then it's my laptop. And that's really how I see the differentiation. I mean, I used to be like I would sit at home, or maybe have my laptop in, like watch movies in bed or whatever. But now I just stream it across to my iPad.
Yes.
Rather.
I have dreams of traveling with just a tablet. Alas, it's not possible quite yet. Arthur, how many tablets have you got on the table there?
Well, I thought an iPad was to sit in coffee shops looking cool.
Well,
I
that's
don't understand your guys' work ethic.
One, two,
Okay, what we
three.
have here.
You've
is
got 4 tablets there.
Firstly, these are all 7-inch tablets.
Okay.
Because everyone's fixated on the iPad and its competitor, the Samsung Galaxy Tab
Yes.
10.1. That's the one I like to travel with, along with my MacBook Air. I find
What,
that's
the
a great,
Galaxy Tab 10.1?
Yeah, that's a great pair because despite the iPad and MacBook Air being both Apple products, they don't talk to each other comfortably. So
Okay.
it's not necessary to take something in the same family along with you in order to be compatible.
Sounds sane.
But-
A lot of people carry Blackberries and iPads, for example, which is
Yeah, I
which is
noticed
a good sort of,
Yeah,
good setup. Then you've got
that works for me too.
you've got a phone with slightly better battery life. You've got your BBM and all of that stuff, and then you've also got your iPad for all your iOS goodies.
But I have to say that it's a toss-up between the Galaxy Tab and the iPad. I use both for testing apps and the like, and I'm always conflicted about which one to carry around with me as a backup. But that's what I take it for, as a backup,
Yeah.
because I don't work on it unless I'm forced to. But let's have a look at these 7-inch devices, because, as I say, everyone's fixated on those two 10-inch tablets, and the 7-inch tablets are, in fact, a great form factor. This is the HTC Flyer.
Yes.
It's decorated with a no-reeve tablet cover. No-reeve is a tablet and a smartphone cover firm based in Saint-Tropez, of all places. And they're trying to bring a sense of style to covers. And it is quite stylish, I have to say.
It is quite nice.
People look at this and say, what tablet
Let me
is that?
take a look at that. Okay. Very
and
nice.
it's made specifically for each of the tablets. So that one's made specifically for the Flyer, which has the pen, the stylus.
I love the Evernote
associated
client
with
on the
it.
Flyer. That was the thing that stood out most to me, was just being able to write and draw naturally on something that's integrated that well with Evernote.
Yeah, there's no question the Flyer is the most enjoyable of the 7-inch
Really?
tablets to use.
The one thing I didn't like about it was that it's running, I think it's 2.2 or 2.3 of Android, which, is designed for phones. I think it just gets away with it at 7 inches, but it still feels like you're using something that was designed for a smaller screen.
I think because the performance is so zippy on the Flyer, it works. But it's got a lot of competition, and particularly on the price point of the device. And I think the price is the only thing that stands in the way of it really taking on the market.
Price is really such an important factor in all of these things, and I think Apple knew that it would be when it managed to reach that $500 price point for the iPad. And Afisa, don't you get the feeling that at some stage Steve said, look, if we're not selling this thing at $500, we're nowhere?
Yeah.
A lot of work went into getting there, it feels like.
Yes, I think so. They had to make it available to a lot of people.
Yeah. That, and also I think because of their vertical integration in manufacturing, the moment you get anybody trying to replicate an Apple product at that price point, it becomes very tricky when you're getting parts from all over the place. And
if you compare prices, people are going to be, but the iPad is this price, I might as well go with the iPad.
Exactly.
They won't consider paying a little bit more for anything else.
That's changing now. I think Samsung's managed to get their prices down quite nicely. All right, what do we? Is this a Huawei S7? Yeah.
And the Slim 7 is the one that first came into the market as a brand name at a reasonable price, ranging from about 3,200 to about 3,800, available on contracts as well. And the contracts are quite attractive. They tend to make it on a monthly basis quite affordable. It's a nice tablet. It's fairly zippy. It handles Angry Birds, which is our benchmark test on tablets, quite nicely. No problem whatsoever. But it does run out of memory fast, and you've got to kill applications every now and then.
Yeah.
And luckily, once you get to know the menu system, you can go in there and kill off apps and flush the data out of the system, and then it starts behaving itself again.
Now, the one I really want to talk about is your BlackBerry Playbook, because
before we get there, though, I want to introduce you
Jumping
to
the gun
something
here.
called
It looks very much like a
it looks
BlackBerry.
like the Playbook from a distance, although I'll hold them up together so you can see that it's not quite the same. Very similar looking design, but the Playbook is quite a bit bigger.
Is that a Kindle Fire?
And that's not a Kindle Fire
No.
either.
Oh, I can see on the back it's definitely not a
Looking on
Kindle
the back,
Fire.
some people might, for a moment, think
Okay,
it's
I need
the
to get you
Huawei.
closer to your mic as well. There we go.
What
Lift
we,
that up a bit for you.
what we have here is the Colpad 2. Now,
Oh,
the-
yes.
The original Colpad was a 999 Rand tablet.
Right. And at that time, I think it was the cheapest available.
It was.
Yeah.
We reviewed it in Gadget, or wrote about it in Gadget at the time. But it was also a disappointing tablet. It was incredibly slow. You certainly couldn't play Angry Birds on it. And it was really geared towards reading books and reading-oriented apps as well. So you could download any app onto it. But if it was an action-based app, there wasn't much you could do with it.
Yeah.
That's the Colpad 2, which is slightly more expensive. $12.99, I think. These are around 1,300 Rand. But it's twice as fast as the Colpad 1, and suddenly you can play Angry Birds.
Nice.
Still not quite as responsive as you would like. It's not the HTC Flyer, but then it doesn't cost 5 times as much either.
Yes.
Pretty much most of the apps that you could do on any other Android 2.3 tablet you can do on, or a honeycomb or gingerbread tablet you could do on this one.
Yes.
What it also allows you to do is to plug in a 3G dongle and connect to 3G.
Right.
It supports it, and it performs quite nicely
So
with it.
is that exactly the same size screen as the other ones, or is it?
It's a 7-inch screen.
Okay.
The only thing that makes it look like a slightly different size is the bezel.
Okay.
So that's a very interesting one.
Yeah. And then there's the BlackBerry Playbook,
And then finally we have the
which for
BlackBerry
me is
Playbook.
king of the 7-inch tablets. A lot of people laugh at me when I say that, and I'm not saying that because of the apps available, but just as a platform, it is a remarkable tablet.
I would agree, and I've always been a fan of the Playbook in terms of its design, although not in terms of what was on the tablet itself.
Yes.
And I think both of us felt all along that if they could just bring the operating system up to speed and what you could do on the tablet up to speed, it would compete well, and indeed it does.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful. It plays beautifully. Angry Birds plays beautifully on it as well. And the high-definition video on the Playbook is stunning. I don't think anything in 7 inches matches up to the Playbook from that point of view.
What really gets me is this touch bezel is just such a clever design,
Yeah.
and it makes this gesture-based sort of touch interface work so
Correct.
well. The screen is second to none. It's really had the best screen quality. The rumors are that the iPad 3 will have Retina display, which will just blow everything out of the water. But for now, I haven't seen a better display on a tablet than the BlackBerry Playbook.
Fully agree.
And now with 2.0, you've got this unified inbox. You can do email without having to tether through your BlackBerry, which is fantastic. The Bridge application does so much more now, they say. I haven't tested Bridge yet. But this unified inbox is nice, and you can combine Facebook, Twitter, and all of your email accounts in one inbox. So kind of, I suppose BlackBerry smartphone users will be used to that scenario.
What I recommend with that, though, is that people have separate apps for Facebook and Twitter, and then just use that integration in the inbox for monitoring what's coming
Sure.
through.
I think that's what it's
on the
for.
two. It doesn't manage them very well if you start working Twitter or working Facebook through the messaging application.
Yeah.
But in terms of monitoring your messaging, it's great for that.
Now, one thing that really appeals to me as somebody who does a lot of presentations is being able to run slideshows off of the Playbook and using the Bridge application on your phone to control your slides. Because now we're getting to a scenario where I could conceivably travel with just a tablet and a phone instead of having to lug a computer around as well. The iPad's great for presentations, and it's got HDMI or VGA out, but the problem is that there's no way to control your presentation with a remote.
Correct.
There have been some sort of, and honestly, they've just been shoddy attempts at integrating the iPhone, but But
there are workarounds, but they're serious workarounds where you've got to know your
But how can you work from a 7-inch tablet?
I actually, I dissed the 7-inch tablets when they first came out. That first Galaxy Tab to me was just terrible. But something about the Playbook just works. It's got ample screen real estate. And I think it's because, a lot of BlackBerry users will be carrying it around with a phone that has a really small screen and doesn't quite match the smartphone specification as thought of by iPhone and Android users.
I still can't quite work on a tablet, whether it's the Playbook or the iPad, as a production machine.
Me as well.
To write articles on it. I have to have
write
a keyboard
quite happily on them.
for that.
You can add a keyboard.
Simon.
You can add a Bluetooth keyboard.
I see a tablet as more as an entertainment device.
The problem is, again, the more you have to add to make it work, the more clunky it gets and the more can go wrong.
I suppose.
With it. And that's where the Ultrabooks really come into their own. With the MacBook Air just having set the pace for it. But I think there's a few Ultrabooks coming along that are going to surprise the market.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
We'll talk about that another time, though.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying this mobile discussion, and it is the week of Mobile World Congress, so we'll carry on. Nafisa Akabor here from My Digital Life, Ben Kelly from the Mail and Guardian, and Arthur Goldstuck from Gadget and Worldwide Works, amongst other places. Good to have you all with us. We're going to talk about Standard Bank versus FNB on Twitter. Some fun on social networks with our banks this week. But before we do, I want to stay with mobile for a little bit longer and talk about the launch of the PS Vita last week, which is the new PlayStation device from Sony. The global launch was last week. I've got one with me, actually, that I've been using this week. And I must say that when they first announced the Vita, I was admittedly skeptical. I think we've been saying for a long time on the show that ultimately these devices get superseded by smartphones. Smartphone games are getting better and better, and they're cheaper as well. And if I think about kids, for example, who are the primary market for these things, I think just the idea of an iPod Touch with $1 games, I think for most parents will blow away the idea of getting a dedicated gaming console. That's what I thought until I saw the PS Vita, and I really am enjoying it. It's an ingenious device. It's got this beautiful AMOLED display, which really, I think, second to Apple's Retina display, is the best handheld display on the market. It's got this touchpad on the back of the device, so you not only touch the screen of the device, you can touch this pad on the back and control games with that, or elements of games. And then it's got those PlayStation controls we're so used to, including the two, what do they call them, 6-axis controllers. It really is just an amazing device. One thing Sony has done wrong, though, is they've gone with their own proprietary memory stick technology for this again. Just as they've integrated SD card into all of their cameras, they come out with a new memory stick standard for the PS Vita. So the PS Vita has its own proprietary memory sticks, and you have to use those for storage. And then it's got this new cartridge for games as well, which looks a hell of a lot like an SD but isn't, that you get your games on. So, yeah, I've been loving it. Absolutely loving it.
I know that there's the amount of Nintendo fanboys out there almost equals the amount of Apple fanboys out there.
Yes.
But I've never been a fan of like the DS.
Oh, I love my 3DS.
It's just never grabbed me the way. And I've never owned a PSP.
Okay.
But I've always liked the look and feel of the PSP as a gaming machine. It's just for somebody who's just slightly bigger, just that little bit of extra width on the device.
Yes.
And the Vita has it as well. Yeah, for mountain device, people who live in caves. Just that little bit of extra width on the device just gives it a little bit of extra edge.
Yes.
And the Vita carries on that heritage. And I just, for me, on a personal level, I just think that the Vita it speaks to me in a way that no Nintendo device has ever spoken to me.
Yeah.
I see that and I go, I would love to have one of those. Where I've never felt the urge to rush out and buy a Nintendo game.
Are you big on gaming, Nafisa?
I have a 3DS. I'm a fan of Tetris and the old stuff. I don't like the Vita. Wouldn't be for me.
Do you like the new Tetris?
I do,
on
yes.
The 3DS?
I was about to say that I use
Do you play it online?
No, not online.
Oh, it's so much fun online.
But no, I love Tetris on the 3DS, and I tend to play it a lot when I'm traveling or when I'm stuck at the airport and there's nothing much to do.
The only thing with the 3DS is the battery life is terrible.
Yeah.
The Vita's battery life is quite amazing. But I mean, I love my portable gaming consoles. I think both of them are.
Yeah.
They're very different markets.
Yeah, I'm big on the Nintendo 3DS.
Now, the other thing that they've introduced is, in the App Store, in the PS Store, they call it, you can buy old PSP games. They're about 75 Rand, which is a great deal.
That's cheap.
So you can get like Grand Theft Auto, what is it, Vice City, I think?
Yeah,
like
Tales from
75
the
Rand.
City, probably.
Yeah. And then of course, you've got the PS Vita games, and there are a lot of great games at launch, and they're cost between like 200 and 500 Rand depending. I've been playing, actually I think we've got video of it, I've been playing the new Uncharted on the PS Vita Golden Abyss, which really shows off what this platform can do. I mean, it feels like you're playing Uncharted on the PS3. The graphics are amazing. The gameplay's fun. It incorporates a lot of these new sort of touch controls, which I'm not completely sold on yet. But whatever, you don't have to use them. But then in the store, they've also added social apps. So Facebook's, for example, and then they've got Live Tweet, which is a really good Twitter client. I'm not sure that this would be my primary Twitter device, but it's been amazing seeing how well it does work. The on-screen keyboard's very good. I think Sony's got a winner here. They really do.
And what do you think about the price?
Well, it's 2.7 for the Wi-Fi version and then 3.2 for the 3G version. I'm not sure who'd buy the 3G version, although it is going to be available on contract. So I think a lot of people who can't afford the cash price might go for a contract.
It might be quite fun if you're going for an upgrade and you've got a decent phone already.
Yes,
Just
yeah.
take a PS Vita instead, you know.
Yeah, which I think Sony's betting on a lot of people do.
I mean, I would seriously consider that, you know.
For yourself, for your kid?
Well, for myself, but to keep the kids off the iPad so I can actually use it.
Okay.
I must say, speaking out of my own experience, my kids don't seem too interested in the Vita. It's clearly aimed at a slightly older, more serious gamer.
Yeah, I think so.
They prefer the iPad, for example, and they love the 3DS. Something about the 3DS appeals to them.
I personally also vote for the 3DS because it tells you so much about where gaming can go in the future. And I guess I'm looking at it from the wrong perspective. I'm not looking at it quite from the viewpoint of the serious gamer who right now wants his fix. I'm looking at it from the point of view of where technology is taking us. And from that point of view, it excites me enormously.
Yeah. Better screens, and I mean they really did nail 3D on the 3DS. It's one of the only lenticular 3D screens that really works for me.
The 3DS was the first 3D device that provided natural 3D in a device that itself was also very satisfying.
Yes.
So it really set the bar for what came next. And I think that's probably the problem, because most other developers or manufacturers didn't really have the technology to match up to it.
Right.
So you've seen it, for example, in the LG 3D phone and the HTC 3D phone, the HTC Evo. Also, great 3D applications on them, but still didn't quite match up to the solid 3D feel and the thought through ecosystem for 3D gaming and 3D activity on the Nintendo device.
The one mistake they did make with the 3DS was they launched it at just a price point that was way too high. They've since fixed that.
That's the biggest problem.
Although, that's exactly what the PS Vita costs now, although I think you're getting a lot more for your money.
But didn't the price drop like 40% since launch?
Yeah, it's like, I think the 3DS is 1.8 or 1.7. So it's a full grand less than...
it's about that. It's about... I'm looking on Kalahari. Which
whatever, man. I like my Vita.
about sort of...
I'll have them all.
Between 1,700 and 2,000 Rand.
I'm like Arthur Goldstuck. He doesn't just buy one tablet. He gets everything that's on the market.
But you've got to know what you're comparing it against.
I just wish I had time for games. And I suppose that's why I like these portable consoles so much, is because you can use them on planes and in the airports. And
I mean, the amount of time I spend playing Jetpack Joyride, I was saying to Nafisa earlier, that Farinaz Parker has beaten my high score. I mean, I don't have a really great high score on Jetpack.
Yeah.
And she's my only Game Center friend. So, and it's like very annoying because I know that she's
add me and we can play Pizza vs. Skeletons.
I'm never going to get close to that score, but I'm trying really hard.
Pizza vs. Skeletons is amazing.
Can I mention one more thing from Mobile World that seems to have gone unnoticed and I think is exciting and significant? I'm not sure where it will go.
Okay.
But that's Mozilla setting up a web apps market.
Okay, yes.
And Mozilla are the people behind Firefox.
Yeah.
So if Firefox, which already has a fairly well-developed apps, or rather plug-in ecosystem, if they're going the apps route as well, that's quite exciting. The idea behind it is that all the apps on the web apps market will be HTML5 compliant.
Yes.
So any device that runs HTML5 or can carry HTML5 will be able to run these apps. And that ultimately will probably be across all tablets and smartphones, aside from those niche companies like Apple that insist on their proprietary systems.
Yeah. Certainly. Shall we talk about Twitter now?
Indeed.
Shall we talk about banks? Nobody likes talking about banks. In this case, though, it should be fun. Memeburn did a good job of rounding up the story with examples of some of the tweets that went back and forth. But in case you doubted for a second that the banks in South Africa are run by morons, this was great evidence of it. A shame. We're very hard on the banks in South Africa, and it's because they're morons. Anyway, Standard Bank decided to start tweeting about a legal spat that they're developing with FNB. They say that FNB's advertising is misleading. So they tweet, and I suspect somebody at Standard Bank got into a lot of trouble for these tweets because it really just is unprofessional and a bad show. But they sent out at Standard Bank GRP, which is their official Twitter, we instruct attorneys to lodge, it's not even English, we instruct attorneys to lodge complaint with ASA against FNB for advertising that misleads the public. It's almost like their Twitter account was hacked by a 14-year-old circus clown. Because
what have you got against circus clowns?
And then it says, FNB ads mislead South Africans by laying claim to several firsts. Our Mzansi account has never had a monthly management fee, etc., etc., etc. So then people start reacting to Standard Bank on Twitter. FNB doesn't say anything because FNB doesn't have to say anything.
Standard Bank are rapidly find out that their customers aren't quite as happy as they may have thought they were.
Yeah.
I mean,
so Nikki Burley, for example, says, wow, I think Standard Bank misjudged the loyalty of FNB customers on Twitter. Just makes them seem vengeful. #brand fail. And so it continues. Michael Jordan, the CEO of FNB, several thousand tweets later chimes in and says customers responding on Twitter to competitors' complaint, doesn't mention them, against FNB. Go check it out. And then at some stage, people start tweeting alternative slogans for Standard Bank. And that's where things really get out of control for the bank. We take your money, foster, better, whatever. And my favorite was moving forward. Have you seen our new MySpace page? And so this really turns into a Twitter nightmare for Standard Bank. Yeah. Something that you really just... And at that stage, I think as a brand owner, all you can do is stand back and watch. You really don't want to get involved at that stage. The damage is done.
Standard Bank misread something very significant on Twitter in South Africa, which is the enormous goodwill that FNB have built up on Twitter from a number of perspectives. FNB, as the bank, doesn't have a Twitter feed that it uses as its primary Twitter persona. It uses RB Jacobs, which is... Let's face it, everybody who thinks about it must know it's a team of people. It's not an individual.
Well, it's a name that you see on their ads when they show a credit card.
Yeah,
it's
right.
RB Jacobs. It's
always been that. Yeah,
it's been their spoof name. Yeah,
it's been their default name for years and years.
So it's a persona for FNB, but because it's a team working RB Jacobs, it means that they're very responsive. And my understanding from having spoken to people heading up units within FNB is that if RB Jacobs gets a complaint, it gets immediately forwarded to the appropriate unit head.
Yes.
And it's being watched at the same time by one Mr. Michael Jordan, who most people know, along with Peter Race, is the most engaged major organization CEO on Twitter,
and gets a lot of respect for running his own Twitter account.
Correct.
Michael and Peter both run their own Twitter accounts. They don't have sort of PR herders with kid gloves
running
their accounts for them,
for better or for worse. For that very reason, there's also enormous goodwill towards the CEO of the bank.
Yes.
So people associate Michael Jordan on Twitter with FNB.
Yeah.
They associate him with being responsive and engaging. And then RB Jacobs obviously basks in that same glow, while at the same time also ensuring that customer complaints about FNB are dealt with quite swiftly. And you've almost got a fail-safe mechanism in place, namely the CEO watching what gets done about the complaints happening there. So you know it's going to be dealt with. And the Twitter community knows that. And then on top of that, you've got this incredibly successful campaign by FNB to migrate people from other private banks to their private clients, and people being wowed by the service they get as a result. So here you have a triple whammy of goodwill, and along comes Standard Bank and throws these seemingly trivial, petty complaints at the Twitter community about this bank that they all love.
What a mistake to make.
And I think even the people who aren't necessarily FNB clients probably find there's a lot of non-FNB clients following Michael Jordan and following RB Jacobs on Twitter.
Of course.
Yeah.
And
probably now switching to FNB.
well, whether they're switching or not, it is irrespective. There's people who maybe can't switch because they're sort of deeply embedded into the bank that they're with at the moment.
Right.
Or they work for the bank.
Or they work for the bank. But the point is
Like Steve.
that irrespective of it really looks. I mean, as you said, every person on Twitter who's following these people probably has a positive impression of FNB because of the way they've dealt with the medium. And anybody who's tried to deal with Standard Bank on Twitter probably feels that they haven't had a positive feeling. They have no Twitter goodwill, really.
No.
I mean, they have as much
Certainly
Twitter
not.
goodwill as ADT does. ADT doesn't actually have a Twitter account. But, I mean, they may as well not be there in reality. It's a placeholder.
Certainly.
But I remember that in the early days of Twitter, Standard Bank was quite active on Twitter. They actually had like people who were like quite serious about like Twitter, and they actually had they probably had one of the early foots in the door on Twitter. But they just sort of dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And so even people like me who are not FNB customers feel quite protective about FNB on Twitter because they're actually taking the medium seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it's saying, I'm on Twitter, I believe in Twitter, and FNB believes in Twitter, nobody else does, so therefore I believe in the FNB. You know, even if I'm not a customer.
So I think that you're certainly right, Ben. Some of their marketing has backfired. So the Steve ads, for example, on radio, a lot of people seem to they're just over it now. They're
That's
tired of hearing the
probably the
Steve
only thing
ads.
people hate about FNB.
Yes, is the Steve ads, but they've certainly done everything else right, and it's just, you know, it's back to the whole. There is no communications problem; it's a product problem. You know, if Standard Bank had any amount of goodwill on Twitter and they had started those tweets, they probably would have been backed up. But I think what a lot of our banks, being the great corporate dinosaurs of the South African economy, need to realize is that it's not about communications and marketing anymore. You need to fix your products. You need to fix your retail banking strategy. Come up with something that people actually want. Delight your customers.
Cut your banking fees.
That's how you win loyalty. That's how you switch customers in the 21st century. You don't pay somebody to run a Twitter account, run a really expensive above-the-line marketing campaign, and then think that you've solved the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is your product.
Yeah.
Anyway.
However, the problem is also your Twitter identity.
Yes.
And I think that's also an area where one has to question Standard Bank's strategy to have a Twitter identity, Standard Bank GRP.
So that's,
it is
big cold corporate sort of.
Yeah.
It's a double negative whammy there because firstly, it's the group.
Yes.
We're talking to you as the group, so watch it. And the other one is, what does GRP actually stand for? Sounds like some a unit from the Second World War that's going to war with somebody, which I guess is appropriate. But I'd also like to draw attention to one of the rival banks, one of the small up-and-coming ones,
Yes.
who are perceived as being a sharp, nimble bank, but are just as clueless on Twitter, and that's Investec.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Capitec.
Me too.
Now, Capitec, we can give another year or two before.
Is
we can
Investec
expect
still
them.
up and coming?
No, not anymore. Investec seem to be going, certainly on Twitter. Investec, I think it's Investec _PB or Investec PB _SA. It's very hard to remember.
Yes.
PB standing for private bank. It's like no one realizes Investec has a private bank, so they've got to stick PB, which no one quite knows what it stands for,
Yes.
on the Twitter account. And I made a complaint about Twitter about 2 or 3 months ago, and it never got responded to. I followed them even in the hope that they'll follow me back so that we could engage by DM, but they never did.
Yeah.
Not that they're stingy with their following, they simply don't have a strategy.
Yeah.
And that's highlighted by the name as well. And very often that name of the Twitter persona actually tells you a lot about the strategy.
Yeah.
You can see it with FNB, and you can see it with Standard Bank, and you can certainly see it with Investec.
I think it's an issue of that if you don't personalize things, if you don't realize that you cannot have one single Twitter account for an entire organization,
Yeah.
then you fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the medium.
Yeah. Definitely.
That's where Vodacom gets it so right, with Ace PJ as the CEO's personal Twitter account. Then you've got Vodacom, which is the group account, and you've got Vodacom 111, which is the customer complaints
Yes.
line,
Yeah.
in effect the call center.
I think it also underlines
very
the fact
effective.
that you have
Very
to
effective.
come up with your own strategy for this stuff. For example, in Vodacom's case, at Vodacom 111 sees a hell of a lot of traffic with people complaining. It wouldn't be practical for them to have meaningful discussions with customers and handle customer complaints from the same account. It would be too messy. So they sort of isolate that one feature of what they want to achieve on Twitter, and they have the other account where they have more meaningful engagements, where they spark conversations and that sort of thing. And I mean, that's really how you approach Twitter. You have to find something that works for your business. I remember when I was sitting with management at 702, when I was doing shows on Talk Radio 702, and they were kind of toiling with, well, what do we do with Twitter? And I said to them, look, you have to grow this stuff organically. Ultimately, the listeners will decide what they want from you on Twitter. But as a starting point, just tweet what's coming up on the air, And I remember I saw Alistair Teeling-Smith not long after that, and he said, what have you done? There are people asking me why I'm not tweeting what's coming up at 4 a.m. I think it was him. Anyway.
But you also get,
But that's the last point I wanted to make. Sorry, Ben, was you can create monsters on Twitter as well.
Like at Benedict Kelly, that's a monster on Twitter. Not to mention at Nafisa1 on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I think you also get the situation. I mean, it's quite interesting we're having at the Mail and Guardian, we're having a strategy conference, and we're talking about people on Twitter and things like that, and whether or not you have like company accounts.
Yes.
So whether I would be Ben Kelly MG at Ben Kelly MG, and then all my followers essentially would belong to the Mail and Guardian. Like if you see on like 702 have done it very effectively. So David Sullivan, John Robbie, Jenny Chris Williams, they all got this. Jenny Chris Williams not so much because she's JCW Life.
Yes.
So she could theoretically take those followers with her if she left.
Yes.
But John Robbie and David O'Sullivan have both got 702 built into their Twitter handles.
Yes.
I know you can change those handles, but there was this discussion earlier, like a month ago, about who owns the followers.
Yes.
And for people like John Robbie and David O'Sullivan, it's clear that 702 owns those followers.
So it's a great theoretical question, and Craig Rodney from Cerebra is very outspoken about this, in terms of the value of your followers. So Anele, for example, Grant and Anele are leaving 5FM. My Tech to the Power of 5 show is embedded in their show. And Anele is going to be the first female drive show host at 94.7 in Johannesburg. But she has a hell of a lot of Twitter followers. I think she's like on 70 or 80,000 or something that she takes with her when she leaves 5FM. Now presumably those are listeners who like Anele, like what she does, and will tune into a different radio station to hear her. Then you look at CNN, for example, and Matthew Buckland and Craig Rodney were both actually on SAFM this weekend talking about this. And Craig said, Matthew said that apparently at CNN, you've got Wolf Blitzer and you've got all of these guys who do shows on CNN. And you'll notice all of their handles on Twitter are their name, CNN. So it's Wolf Blitzer, CNN. Now, apparently, when they leave CNN, they have to leave their Twitter account behind. And the new host of their show, they'll take that Twitter account and rename it with the new host's name. So Arthur Goldstuck, CNN, will take over Wolf Blitzer's account if you replace him on the show.
But that does make sense. If you were asked to create that account by your employer, then they own it.
So if you left IT Web and you stopped editing My Digital Life, and they said to you, hand over your username and password because we're keeping @Nafisa1 and whoever's the
No, but
editor.
they didn't ask me to create that handle.
No,
I have
sure.
a separate one.
And what would you have done if they'd asked you to?
No, I'd say no. It's mine. I created it.
That's the way I feel.
I try not to spam my followers too much with my digital life stuff because I have 2 separate accounts.
Sure.
So, well, nobody
Yeah.
can tell me what to say on my personal
Yeah,
account.
absolutely. I mean, I think it all depends what the initiation was for the specific account.
Yeah.
And for my account, for your account, for Arthur's account, I mean, I don't know what Worldwide Works would do if Arthur left and took his Twitter followers with him.
Chief Whip.
But I mean, those are things we started in our personal capacity before our employers even
Yeah.
had a clue what Twitter
yes.
was. They couldn't even spell Twitter when we were
Yeah.
on Twitter.
Now, the example Craig Rodney used was at Presidency SA. So Jacob Zuma tweets as at Presidency SA. And that Twitter account belongs to the presidency of the Republic of South Africa. And if we have a new president, even if they're from a different party, presumably,
Yeah,
the presidency as an organization would retain that Twitter handle, you know?
makes sense.
There it makes perfect sense.
That makes sense. But
But if
also-
your employers want you to create a
personal- What would your name?
essentially, it is a show persona. I mean, that's why you'll see. I mean, probably find Wolf Blitzer does actually have a personal Twitter account,
Yes.
but nobody really knows about it. And he would just tweet. The last tweet he sends out, he goes, "I'm leaving CNN. You can follow me on @WolfBlitzer."
Yeah.
And boom, everybody's going to a large chunk of his people
Well,
are
there
going
might
to
be
transfer
contractual
across.
things that prevent him from doing that.
Or you just do it
I
anyway.
think it's unfair. It's like announcing you're leaving, and
Yeah.
you should be allowed to.
yeah.
Liron in our chat room on IRC makes a good point. He says that's the problem with Google Plus. It's linked to your Gmail account. So really only an individual can own a Google Plus account. I don't know if Google Plus and Twitter are similar in...
It's not
Well,
the same
well, you have a
thing.
fan
terms
page
of
for ZA Tech
broadcast.
Show.
Hmm.
What address is that linked to?
Yeah, so, at ZA Tech Show is at ZA Tech Show. I obviously have my own brand and, 8 different magazines I write for sporadically and a radio station and podcasts and...
But you would create then CNN would create in the CNN example, CNN would create a Gmail account for Wolf Blitzer CNN.
Yes.
And create a Google Plus persona
interesting
for that.
discussion.
But a lot of companies don't think of doing that up front. They just...
But I think it's also different for the CEO of a company. So, Peter Ace, for example, if he ever left and went to go and head up ATA...
Stop spreading rumors, Simon.
but, if Peter Ace ever left Vodacom, at Ace PJ would go with him. But
Yeah,
he
of
would,
course.
he would no longer be the CEO of Vodacom, which doesn't strike me as important.
No.
And I think, journalists, this is our lifeblood. Our personal brands have become vital. And I honestly believe that people don't only buy magazines for the brand of the magazine. They
the
buy
person.
it for personality. I think more copies of the Wall Street Journal get sold because of Walt Mossberg than because of anything the Wall Street Journal as such has done outside of hiring him.
And
But it's
also,
sorry.
recently, didn't the BBC journalists were told they're not allowed to tweet breaking news?
Yes, Sky
There
and
was
BBC
Sky and
both
BBC.
cracked down on their journalists.
They're not
tweeting
allowed to tweet
news.
breaking news.
Agencies as
Is it
well.
because it's unsubstantiated?
That's the main reason. They basically wanted to go through the same kind of editorial vetting process as normal news, but mainly that they don't embarrass themselves with breaking news that didn't actually happen.
Well, that's the problem with Twitter. There've been a lot of memes where people falsely claim that Nelson Mandela has passed away, for example.
Don't start that now, Simon.
That
No, but
started
I'm
on
s-
BBM.
No, sure, but
It's a useful example because of what happened this weekend where
where he really
He
was in
actually-
hospital.
he was in
yeah.
hospital, and the presidency very quickly released a statement. And although there have been complaints that there weren't enough updates, we were better informed this time round than the previous time he was in hospital. And the result, and this is my kind of conclusion from the whole debacle, was that they didn't leave space for Twitter, in effect, to fill the gaps with rumor and misleading information. So that's really an object lesson for anybody in a crisis situation.
Absolutely.
Is immediately fill those holes that normally would be filled by rumor and speculation.
Yes.
I don't think anyone from Velvet Sky is listening. They're too busy trying to balance the books, but
Shame.
that would be a lesson for them.
Yeah, and
Velvet
the
Sky is a
kitchen with
budget
scales.
carrier in South Africa that had problems last week getting plans off the
They're
ground.
having
into some
problems today.
paperwork.
They've delayed. Well, the latest news was that they've essentially grounded themselves for a week to
You know
try
what
to
that
sort things
costs
out.
an airline? Airlines are fascinating. I've just done a big article on airline technology for FinWeek. So if you pick up this week's issue of FinWeek, you'll find it in there. And I was chatting to the CIO of One Time, for example, who's also one of the founders of the airline. And he was telling me by switching to iPad for all of the pilots' paperwork, they save R1 million a year on weight. Just the weight difference between all of the papers and the iPad in petrol is about R1 million. The economies of air travel are just fascinating.
There's always the story about Delta or one of those airlines in the States which took one olive out of the salad.
Oh, yeah.
And saved like $3 million a year.
It's just crazy to think of things at that level. What blows me away about airlines is how you'll get some really skinny guy who's being reprimanded for having one bag too many, and behind him in the queue is somebody who weighs like 180 kilograms, and they've got no problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, shall we move on to our picks of the week? We're running short of time. I love chatting about Twitter and journalism. But I think that's where journalism's fit in, right? Is journalism's. It's late on a Monday. Journalists.
Someone needs to edit what this guy says on air.
Yeah. You could start a meme with SHIT, Simon says. So you're going to get things like Michael Jackson just passed away on Twitter, and that's where you need journalists to find out whether or not it's true, and then tell us.
Yeah, Twitter is not a journalistic medium, although it can be used for journalism. It's not a medium that breaks news in its own right, but it can be used for breaking news. So people must understand it's a tool. It's not the solution.
Absolutely.
Yes. No.
Yeah.
And if journalists want to be irresponsible, they're ruining their own reputation.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
But they're not going to be credible.
I always say that because I know that my boss Nick Dawes follows me on Twitter, and I say my mantra is, if I write anything on Twitter, am I happy with my boss seeing this? And if the answer is no,
Sage advice.
I delete it and I don't send it.
Yeah, I'm always aware of that.
Yes, then it's okay. And that's essentially the thing you have to ask. Even if you're a freelance, even if you're not employed, like a thing. If you say, if I had a boss, would I be happy for my boss to read what I'm about to write?
Yes.
And if the answer is no, don't send it.
No, I'm the same. Like, I'm always aware my boss follows me. Ranka, but she's cool.
I've got a far scarier scenario. I've got to think every time I tweet, am I happy for my daughter to see this?
Ah, there you go. All right. Shall we do our picks?
Yep.
Shall we do ladies first?
Lady.
Nafisa?
Okay, my pick is not something new. It's actually an iOS app. It's called Tweetbot. It's a Twitter app.
Okay, I love Tweetbot.
Do you? Well, I've been recommending it to everybody. It has more, they refer to it as a Twitter app with more personality.
Yeah.
One of my best features about it is that you can block hashtags and mute people and clients, especially
very
clients.
handy.
Because, I can't do the Paperly and the Foursquare tweets and add it as my coach running, that type of thing. So it lets you hide all this information. So you essentially have a clean stream. So if you have somebody who annoys you, but you don't really want to unfollow them, if they're a friend, for example, then you can just mute them.
And it's just got a really great interface as well, a very sort of elegant use of interface. It's very easy to navigate around. And
yeah, it was when Twitter revamped that I was like, I can't use this anymore. I have to find an alternative. Yeah,
I quite like the new Twitter app, but Tweetbot just takes things to a whole other level.
Yeah, I think once I started using Tweetbot, I can't go back to Twitter. So.
Cool.
Oh, and it's $3.
Yeah,
$2.99.
So. Price of a hamburger.
Breaks through the $10 barrier for Nafisa.
But it's worth it.
Very cool. All right. Thanks, Nafisa. What's yours, Ben?
Okay, I've got two picks. One quickly. I don't know if it's still available, but for a while now, Dropbox have been testing out a new beta client.
Okay.
And essentially what they're doing now is it will auto upload your images to Dropbox. And so even when it goes live, the reason I've been finding it so awesome is they were rewarding people who are testing the beta clients with bandwidth, free space. So
that's what they do.
So I've gone from 2 gig to 6.2 gig. 6.2 gig in a matter of like a couple of weeks, just from uploading pictures and videos that were taken on my iPhone and my iPad.
Very cool.
And that's yours forever, even if you delete the stuff afterwards. But once, it's starting to go live now. This new functionality, this auto upload functionality, and that is really great. If you, it's going to chew your bandwidth a bit.
Yeah.
But if you're not worried about those kind of things, it is, and the mobile clients will only upload through Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So you are not going to issue your 3G data, but just the ability to auto upload full-sized images from your phone or your iPad or whatever device you're using to Dropbox into a photo folder on Dropbox is quite nice.
Very cool. And also very handy that you've gotten so much free space for it.
Yes, very happy about that. I'm not really good about selling my friends out to join stuff. So
yeah. That was part of the HTC One announcement was when you buy that phone, you get 25 gigabytes free on Dropbox.
Oh, that's nice.
Which is
it's
nice.
worth buying it just for that.
Yeah. What is your other pick?
The other pick is from Mobile World Congress.
Okay.
I think I may have just gone past it.
That's fine.
It's from a company called Option, which we probably have met before.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just going to go back to where I found it. And it's a 3G. It's like a MiFi type device.
Yes.
But the initial device is essentially just a little. It looks like a 3G dongle.
Yes.
And you can use it as a 3G dongle, or you can plug it into the side of your laptop. Because I actually plug my MiFi into my laptop to keep it powered.
Okay.
Most of the time, so you can plug this in and create a Wi-Fi hotspot off it.
Very cool.
So, which will do up to 8 people, which the normal Wi-Fi's I think only do 5.
Yes.
So you can do up to 8 people. But the other thing is they've partnered with another company, which I think is really cool. It's called XFi. Sorry, Xi-Fi. XYFI. So because it obviously doesn't have a battery.
Yes.
So they've partnered with another company called XPAL, which does power skin accessories and worked with Energizer and those companies in the past. And essentially they send you a little, what looks probably about the same size as a MiFi, a little bit wider than MiFi, but same basic things, and that's your battery. And you slide the XFi into the battery.
Okay.
And it'll give you 8.5 hours of HSPA battery life.
Very cool.
Which is like dramatically more than you're going to get from MiFi. So you're getting... So firstly, you've got the battery version, you've got the non-battery version. You can support up to 8 people off it. It's full HSPA plus 42 megabits, I think. And they say it'll deliver up to 8.5 hours of continuous service. This has just been launched, so we don't know if we'll get it here or when we'll get it here. But I just think that for the way I used a MiFi, to be able to not use the battery a lot of the time,
yes,
when I don't need the battery. I don't need the battery running power through the battery and potentially running it down, then it's a real option. And then when you want to go on the road and you want to just flick it on, you just literally slide it into its dock, flick
Very
it
cool.
on, and now you've got 8.5 hours of battery life.
Love that. Very
That's a whole day's work,
Nice pick. Thanks, Ben. Arthur, what's yours?
3 picks for the week.
3?
If you can have 2, I can have 3. But
Fair
I'll try
enough.
to be quick.
Okay.
My first pick of the week is called a car mouse. And this is an Aston Martin. And the exact model...
Need you in the mic.
I think it's a GPS.
I'm sure if we had some of our friends from Cerebra here, like Mark Stopforth, he would tell us exactly which model this is.
That looks like a DBS.
Yeah.
But once you connect it via Bluetooth, and it's a tiny Bluetooth dongle that you stick into your USB port, so you barely notice it. And what I love about that is that you can actually stick your laptop into your laptop bag
without removing
the dongle.
Nice.
So that's the one thing. But the other really cool thing is that the headlights and the taillights light up while you're using it. So it looks so damn cool.
My wife has a Range Rover Evoque. One of those mice.
Could
Anyway.
it not?
I have one of those
too.
too.
Bentley, VW Beetle,
Cool.
Mercedes
500.
SLK,
Yes, I also have that.
etc.
And some classic ones
Number
as well.
2 is this phone, which looks like one of the old BlackBerry Storms.
Yeah.
But in fact, and believe it or not, it doesn't have anything that slides out. It doesn't have any keyboard or anything like that. It's actually the new
The
BlackBerry Curve. And it looks and feels beautiful. And when you look at the quality of the photos, that was a photo of Ben Kelly taken without a flash in the studio.
Very cool.
Lovely quality. So it's a 5 megapixel camera, very much the same as most of the other current models, but the quality of the pictures that I've got with it is far better. It feels good. It's got a nice industrial design to it. Everything feels integrated as opposed to separate bits and pieces that are stuck together. So I'm not quite sure if the Curve community, which is used to a keyboard, is going to migrate to this one.
Yeah.
But certainly it shows that BlackBerry has woken up to the touchscreen generation. Is this the one that will save BlackBerry in that particular demographic? Possibly. Depends on the pricing.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll save them, but I've been testing one as well, and it certainly is a very nice little device. I love the size. It's sort of... And a nice companion to the playbook as well. You know,
yes, indeed.
You can carry the playbook for your Angry Birds and whatever else.
And that's the thing also, is the size and the weight. It feels solid and yet incredibly light. And you can slip it into your pocket. It's the slippability I like to talk about with phones.
And the battery life is very good on it too.
And that's the bottom line, the battery life. It's got... so far for me about 4 or 5 days standby time,
yes,
and at least a couple of days talk time, which none of the other current BlackBerries have. So
it's, it is a great little phone. I think if any phone saves BlackBerry, though, it'll be the next generation.
And then very quickly, my third pick of the week is actually a human being. If you've been going around shopping malls and coming across the demonstrations of the Samsung Note, you might also have been lucky enough to see the kind of artists in residence or mobile artists in residence demonstrating it, actually painting or caricaturing people on the Samsung Note. His name is Roy Blumenthal, and he's on Twitter at Roy Blumenthal. So my pick of the week for the most intrepid demos of technology right now is at Roy Blumenthal.
He's an amazing digital artist. I remember the first time I saw him at work, he was using a tablet PC. This was about 4 or 5 years ago, using a tablet PC and Linux. With some software he'd found to do sort of live portraits and things on Linux. And now at the moment he's got to deal with Samsung showing off the Samsung Note, which is their phablet, somewhere between a phone.
And I'll tell you the dirty secret of at Roy Blumenthal, which is why I recognize him despite his artist disguise, is that he was the first ever editor of Gadget, going back about 14, 15 years.
Well, there you have it.
Gadget.co.za. I had to slip that one in.
No, that's fine. We're all about shameless self-promotion here. It's all good.
Thank you. Shameless are us.
Thanks, Arthur. I'm going to do a quick pick then. Mine is Stitcher Radio. It's an app called Stitcher. It's available for iOS, Android, and apparently some other devices too, although I can't tell you exactly what. And I'm very excited about Stitcher, or, you know, we're excited at Split Infinitive, which is the company behind ZA Tech Show, about the future of radio and content. And I think things are heading in the Stitcher direction. You fire up the app, you tell it what you want to listen to, and your radio station starts playing. It combines podcasts with live radio, and you can essentially start stitching together your own radio station. So if you look for ZA Tech Show on Stitcher, you'll find us. And this has become the way that I listen to my podcasts in the car. I've got my smartphone hooked up to my Bluetooth audio system in the car, whether it's an Android device or an iPhone. Load up Stitcher, tell it what you want to listen to. So type in ZA Tech Show, and within seconds, without downloading a file or anything, you're listening to the ZA Tech Show. Streams over your 3G connection, uses hardly any data at all. And you can, as I said, listen to a lot of live radio stations from around the world, as well as a lot of great podcasts. So the next time you fire up the ZA Tech Show, try Stitcher. I've stopped downloading podcasts because all my favorite podcasts are on Stitcher anyway. And what's great is you can go back to an episode and it'll remember where you kicked off, you know. So you can listen to ZA Tech Show, followed by ZA Car Show, followed by This Week in Tech, followed by Tech News Today, followed by whatever. You come back to that particular episode of the ZA Tech Show you're listening to, and it picks up where you left off. So check out Stitcher. I think it's the future of radio. And as somebody who creates a lot of online content, I'm quite excited about it.
Only if it's got the Nick Rabinovitz podcast.
I don't know if it's got that.
Well, if you can subscribe to something.
I don't know if you can. It actually has to be on the Stitcher network.
Okay.
Yeah. But as you know, signing up is quick and easy. We got approached to do it. And we also had some popular demand from listeners of the ZA Tech Show who are Stitcher users. So we contacted Stitcher and became officially supported by them.
Congratulations.
And vice versa. You know, it's a case of signing up, but we're quite happy with it, and I think this is going to be the way most people listen to podcasts in the future.
I'm going to download it.
Of course, you know, if you don't want to use Stitcher, we still have the ZA Tech Show on iTunes. You can listen to it via the web. We're on YouTube. Wherever you look for us, you'll hopefully find us. And if you don't, send us an email, info@zatechshow.co.za, and we will endeavor to put our content where you are, because we're about our listeners, not the other way around. Our show belongs to you. Shall we stick a fork in it now?
So please follow us on Twitter.
At
so that
ZA
we can
Tech Show.
own you.
Yeah. All right. Guys, thanks for being here. This was good fun. Covered a lot of ground. Went over time, which is always a good sign. Thank you, Arthur Goldstuck.
A pleasure, Simon Dingle.
At Art2G on Twitter.
My pleasure, at Simon Dingle.
Follow Arthur. And he tweets about, you name it, if it involves technology and telecoms. And he has actual research to back up what he says. So where's the rest of us to shoot our mouths off? Arthur's actually researched these things and knows what he's talking about. Thanks for being here, Arthur.
Thank you, Simon.
At Benedict Kelly.
Thank you, at Simon Dingle.
From his cave in the Magaliesberg. You'll also find him in the Mail and Guardian. Thanks for being here.
It's always a pleasure.
And Nafisa Akabor, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having me again.
Of course, anytime. At Nafisa1 on Twitter, the number one, and of course, editor of My Digital Life, does a great job there. So thank you for being here. We'll have you back on soon.
Thank you, at Simon Dingle.
No problem, at Nafisa1. And this was episode 200 of the ZA Tech Show for Monday, 27 February 2012. Somebody was commenting last week about how I always look down at my phone for the date. I'm hopeless with dates.
Me as well.
Brett Haggard usually covers those for us, and he's not here. So anyway, thanks for watching or listening, whether you did it live or otherwise. And we'll be back next week with episode number 201. Cheers.